Most people think poverty is simply about not earning enough money. But the truth is much deeper and far more complicated. Poverty is not just a number on a paycheck. It is a loop, a cycle that quietly traps millions of people without them even realizing how it started or why it keeps repeating. Imagine waking up every day knowing that your income is barely enough to survive. You pay your rent, you buy basic food, maybe you cover transportation, and suddenly there is nothing left. No savings, no safety net, just another month of hoping nothing goes wrong. And when something does go wrong, a medical bill, a broken phone, a job delay, everything collapses at once. This is how the poverty loop tightens its grip. Low income leads to no savings. No savings forces people to rely on loans or credit. Loans come with interest, and interest slowly eats away at future income. That means next month, even before earning a single rupee or dollar, part of your money is already gone, and as this continues, stress begins to grow. Not just normal stress, but constant suffocating pressure that follows you everywhere. You cannot sleep peacefully. You cannot think clearly. Your mind is always calculating, always worrying, always trying to survive the next expense. This stress doesn't just affect your emotions, it affects your decisions. When someone is stuck in survival mode, they cannot plan 5 years ahead. They cannot take risks like changing careers or starting a business. They cannot invest in long-term education because they need immediate income, so they remain in the same jobs, with the same pay, in the same environment, year after year. Not because they lack ambition, but because their situation does not allow them the luxury of long-term thinking. And here is where the loop becomes dangerous. Limited income leads to limited opportunities. Limited opportunities lead to limited growth. And limited growth keeps income low. The cycle feeds itself over and over, quietly, efficiently, and mercilessly. Many people from the outside look at this and say, why don't they just work harder? But they don't see the exhaustion that comes from working long hours for low pay. They don't see the mental fatigue of constantly worrying about bills. They don't see how difficult it is to focus on improving your life when your entire energy is spent just trying to hold it together. Understanding this loop is the first step toward breaking it, because you cannot escape a trap you do not recognize. You cannot fight a system you do not understand. Once you see that poverty is not just a lack of effort, but a repeating cycle of financial pressure, emotional stress, and limited choices, you begin to look at your situation differently. And that shift in understanding is where real change begins. There is something deeply unfair about the way money works in the real world. People often assume that when someone is poor, they spend less. But in reality, being poor is expensive. Not in one dramatic moment, but in hundreds of small, painful ways that slowly drain whatever little income a person has. Think about something as simple as buying shoes. A person with stable income can afford to buy one high-quality pair that lasts for years. Someone with low income cannot. They buy the cheapest option because that is all they can afford in that moment. The shoes wear out in a few months, and they have to buy another pair, and then another. Over time, they end up spending more money than the person who bought the expensive pair once. This pattern repeats across almost every area of life. The same thing happens with appliances, phones, furniture, and even food. Cheap products break faster. Cheap food is often unhealthy and leads to long-term medical problems. But when you are living on a tight budget, you are not choosing between healthy and unhealthy or durable and fragile. You are choosing between what you can pay for today and what you simply cannot. Then there is the financial system itself, which is rarely kind to low-income earners. When someone with a high income needs a loan, they get low interest rates and flexible terms. When someone with a low income needs that same loan, the interest is higher, the penalties are harsher, and the pressure is immediate. Late fees, overdraft charges, and hidden costs quietly punish people for being short on money, even when they are trying their best to stay afloat. It doesn't stop there. People with higher incomes often have access to better education, better health care, and better networks. These advantages do not just make life more comfortable, they make it easier to keep earning and growing. Meanwhile, someone earning less might skip medical checkups because they cannot afford them, only to face a bigger, more expensive health problem later. They might avoid skill courses because the fees feel impossible, even though those skills could have increased their income in the future. This creates a frustrating reality where the people who need financial relief the most are the ones who pay the highest hidden costs. It feels like running a race where others start ahead, run on smooth roads, and have water stations along the way, while you are running barefoot on rough ground, carrying extra weight, with no support in sight. Over time, these hidden costs build up and reinforce the poverty loop. Money leaks out through repairs, interest payments, emergency expenses, and low-quality purchases that need constant replacement. It is not wasteful spending. It is survival spending. And survival spending rarely allows anyone to move forward. Recognizing these hidden costs is powerful because it removes the guilt and confusion many people feel about their financial struggles. It shows that the problem is not always poor choices, but often poor options. And once you understand that being poor is structurally expensive, you start to see why escaping low income requires not just earning more, but also learning how to reduce these silent financial drains that keep pulling you back. There is another side of poverty that people rarely talk about. It is not visible in bank statements or paychecks. It lives inside the mind. The constant pressure of not having enough changes the way a person thinks, decides, and even dreams. This is known as the psychology of scarcity, and it plays a powerful role in keeping people stuck in the poverty loop. When someone is always worried about money, their brain is forced to focus on immediate problems. Rent is due, groceries are running low, a bill is coming tomorrow. These urgent concerns demand attention every single day. Over time, the mind becomes trained to think only about survival. Long-term goals begin to feel distant, unrealistic, even pointless. Not because the person lacks ambition, but because their mental energy is being used up just to get through the week. Imagine trying to plan your future while your phone keeps ringing every few minutes with reminders of unpaid bills. Imagine trying to study a new skill while your mind keeps calculating how to stretch the remaining cash until the end of the month. It becomes incredibly difficult to concentrate, to learn, or to make calm, rational decisions. Stress shortens patience. It reduces focus. It makes small problems feel overwhelming and big opportunities feel risky. Scarcity also changes how people evaluate choices. When you have very little, every decision feels dangerous. Spending money on a course, starting a small business, or even moving to a new city for a better job can feel terrifying. One mistake could mean not being able to pay rent or feed your family. So people often choose the safest, most familiar option, even if it keeps them stuck in low income. From the outside, this may look like a lack of courage, but from the inside, it feels like protecting your survival. This mental pressure can also lead to decisions that provide short-term relief, but long-term damage. A person might take a high-interest loan just to get through an emergency. They might work excessive overtime instead of investing time in learning new skills. They might avoid difficult conversations about money because thinking about finances already feels exhausting. These are not irrational decisions. They are coping mechanisms in a stressful environment. Over time, living under scarcity begins to shrink a person's sense of possibility. Dreams start to sound unrealistic. Ambition starts to feel dangerous. You stop asking, what do I want to become? And start asking, how do I just survive another month? And when a person stops imagining a better future, they also stop taking steps that could lead them there. Understanding the psychology of scarcity is crucial because it shifts the conversation from blaming individuals to understanding their mental environment. It explains why intelligence, talent, and hard work are sometimes not enough to escape poverty. The mind itself becomes overloaded, distracted, and cautious. But here's the powerful part. Once someone becomes aware of the psychological trap, they can start creating small pockets of mental space. Even tiny financial stability, a small emergency fund, a predictable routine, or a clear plan can reduce stress just enough to allow better decisions. And those better decisions, made consistently over time, can slowly weaken the grip of scarcity and open the door to real, lasting change. There is a harsh truth about income that many people are never taught in school. Your salary is not determined by how hard you work. It is determined by how valuable your work is in the marketplace. Two people can work the same number of hours, sweat the same amount, and feel equally exhausted at the end of the day. Yet one earns 10 times more than the other. This is not always fair, but it is how modern economies function. Income grows when the value you provide grows. A person who can solve complex problems, manage systems, create demand, or generate revenue for a company will always be paid more than someone performing tasks that many others can easily replace. This is not an attack on low-income workers. It is a reflection of supply and demand. When a skill is rare and useful, it becomes valuable. When a task is common and easily replaced, it becomes cheap in the eyes of the market. Many people are told that education is the way out of poverty, and education can be powerful. But not all education leads to higher income. A degree without market demand can leave someone in the same financial position, only now with student debt added on top. What truly changes earning potential is not just knowledge, but marketable skills. Skills that businesses need. Skills that save time, increase profits, or solve expensive problems. Think about fields like digital marketing, programming, sales, data analysis, financial management, and skilled trades. These are areas where a single person's work can directly influence revenue or efficiency. When your work can be measured in results, companies are more willing to pay higher wages because they can clearly see the return on their investment. This is why some of the hardest working people remain stuck in low income. They're working in roles that, while essential, are not scarce. If one worker leaves, another can be hired quickly at the same rate. This creates a ceiling on income no matter how loyal or hardworking someone is. It is not a personal failure. It is a structural limitation. The good news is that skills can be learned. Unlike family wealth or social status, skills are something a person can build over time. It may require late nights, sacrifices, and stepping outside of comfort zones, but it is one of the few paths that consistently leads to higher earning potential. In today's digital world, many of these skills can even be learned online at low cost or sometimes for free, making them more accessible than ever before. However, learning a skill is not enough. It must be practiced, demonstrated, and connected to real opportunities. Someone who learns graphic design but never builds a portfolio or applies for projects will not see their income change. Value only increases when skills are turned into real-world results that others are willing to pay for. Once people understand this principle, their focus begins to shift. Instead of asking, how can I work more hours, they start asking, how can I become more valuable? That single shift in thinking changes everything. It turns career growth into a strategic journey instead of a desperate search for any available job. And when a person begins to consistently increase the value they bring to the market, their income eventually has no choice but to follow. At some point, understanding the poverty loop, the hidden costs, and the psychology behind it is not enough. Awareness alone does not change a bank balance. The real turning point comes when a person begins to take small, deliberate actions that slowly shift their financial direction. Breaking the cycle does not require a dramatic overnight transformation. In fact, most people who escape low income do it through quiet, consistent steps that look insignificant at first but become powerful over time. The first and most practical step is increasing income, not just cutting expenses. Many financial advice videos focus heavily on saving money, but there is a limit to how much a person can save when their income is already low. You can only reduce expenses so much before you begin sacrificing your health, your time, and your basic quality of life. But income has no fixed ceiling. Learning one high-income skill and applying it, even in small freelance or part-time work, can start creating a second stream of money. That second stream, no matter how small, begins to loosen the grip of financial pressure. Another important step is avoiding lifestyle inflation. This is the trap where, as soon as income increases slightly, expenses rise to match it. A person gets a raise and immediately upgrades their phone, moves to a more expensive apartment, or starts spending more on things that were previously unaffordable. It feels rewarding in the moment, almost like proof of progress. But if every increase in income is matched by an increase in spending, financial position never truly improves. The key is to let income grow faster than lifestyle, at least for a period of time, so that a gap forms between what you earn and what you spend. That gap is where savings and investments begin to grow. Starting to save money while earning very little may sound unrealistic, even frustrating. But even a tiny amount saved regularly begins to build a psychological shift. It creates a sense of control. It tells your mind that not every rupee you earn is already spoken for. That small emergency fund, even if it covers only a few days of expenses, reduces panic when something unexpected happens. And when panic is reduced, decisions become calmer and smarter. Breaking the cycle also means learning to think beyond a single source of income. Relying on one job, especially a low-paying one, is risky. If that job disappears, the entire financial structure collapses. Exploring side work, freelancing, small online businesses, tutoring, or skill-based services can create additional streams. At first, these streams may feel slow and tiring to manage alongside a main job, but over time they provide flexibility and security that a single paycheck never can. The most important thing to remember is that progress may feel painfully slow in the beginning. There will be days when it seems like nothing is changing, when the extra work feels exhausting, and when the results feel too small to matter. This is the stage where many people give up, not because they are incapable, but because the reward is delayed. But every skill learned, every small amount saved, and every extra bit of income earned is quietly building momentum. Escaping low income is not a leap. It is a series of small steps taken repeatedly, even when motivation is low and results are not yet visible. Those who keep moving, even slowly, eventually find themselves in a position that once felt completely out of reach. Escaping low income is not just about earning a little more next month or finding a better job this year. Real financial freedom comes from building a system that keeps working for you long after the initial struggle is over. Many people manage to increase their income for a short period, but without a long-term strategy, they often find themselves slipping back into the same financial stress they worked so hard to escape. The first milestone in this long-term journey is stability. Stability means reaching a point where one unexpected expense does not destroy your entire financial structure. This is where an emergency fund becomes life-changing. It is not just a pile of money sitting in an account. It is peace of mind. It is the ability to sleep without fear that a small crisis will turn into a financial disaster. Even a modest emergency fund covering 3 to 6 months of essential expenses creates a protective wall between you and the chaos of uncertainty. Once stability is in place, the focus begins to shift from survival to growth. This is where investing enters the picture. Investing is often misunderstood as something only wealthy people do, but in reality, it is one of the main reasons they stay wealthy. When you invest, your money begins to work on your behalf. Instead of trading time for every single unit of income, you start creating systems where income can grow even while you sleep. Whether it is through stocks, small business expansion, or skill-based ventures, the principle remains the same. Money that is left idle slowly loses value, while money that is invested has the potential to multiply. Career growth is another pillar of long-term escape. A person who keeps upgrading their skills, learning new tools, and adapting to market changes becomes far more resilient to economic shifts. Jobs change, industries evolve, and technology replaces outdated roles. Those who treat learning as a lifelong habit protect themselves from becoming trapped again. This does not always mean formal education. It can be online courses, mentorship, practical experience, or simply staying curious and open to change. For some people, long-term stability also leads to entrepreneurship. Starting a business is not easy, and it is not a guaranteed path, but it offers one powerful advantage: control. Instead of being limited by the salary structure of an employer, a business owner has the opportunity to scale income based on effort, creativity, and strategy. Even small businesses, side ventures, or local services can grow into significant income sources over time if managed wisely. Perhaps the most overlooked aspect of escaping poverty is generational impact. When one person in a family learns about saving, investing, and skill development, they change more than just their own life. They change the financial habits of their children, their siblings, and sometimes their entire community. Teaching the next generation about money, encouraging education, and building assets instead of only earning income creates a ripple effect that can break the poverty loop permanently for a family. The journey from low income to financial stability is not a straight line. There will be setbacks, mistakes, and moments of doubt. But those who focus on building systems instead of chasing quick fixes gradually create a life where money is no longer a constant source of fear. They move from reacting to every financial problem to calmly planning their future with confidence and clarity. And that is the true escape. Not just earning more for a few months, but building a life where the poverty loop no longer has the power to pull you back in.